G'day everybody, this is part 2 of the Speed Passion LM1 build series. Part 2 here, we will be starting off with the build of the actual kit, and to start off what we will be doing is starting with the rear motor pod and assembling the parts necessary to it, and then attaching it to the main chassis. So before I begin, some of the things I will go through with you, well, I will sound a bit like a parrot or a broken record. I'll quite often say, don't over tighten something, use thread lock, pay attention to orientations, etc, etc. Well, if you've never built a kit before, one of the main things of advice I could give you is to take your time, have a read through the instructions before you start building, and also make sure you have the right amount of parts for each section you're going to do. So in this case, what I've done here, as you can see, there's two sections I've got here. So this first section is section 1, this will be section 2, which will be then part of section 2 here, where we attach it to the main chassis. So yeah, when you're building, take your time, don't rush it. If something's a little awkward at first, don't worry, just have a look at it, and most of these kits are pretty much a cinch to put together, so just take your time and pay attention to the instruction manual, and it'll be easy as, well, I was going to say taking candy from a baby, but I've tried that and it didn't work out. But it's pretty easy. So what we'll need for the assembly is we'll need some Allen drivers. Now, if you saw the unboxing video, where did I put it? It does come with some tools, but I don't like them, to be honest. So I prefer using some high quality Allen drivers, and for this you will need a 1.5mm, 2mm and a 2.5mm to start off with. Also, it helps to have some thread lock, because when you're doing metal on metal, you don't want it to loosen up, and especially if you're in a race and bolt comes out, well, for lack of better expressions, you're screwed. Okay, so first of all, what we need is, this is the rear motor pod plate, and then we will need some washers. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to get a washer out of this packet. See, this is exactly what I mean, to pay attention to what you're doing. And if you're struggling to find the screw necessary for the section that you're building, if you look at the instructions, you'll see they'll have like the parts list going down the side, and it is 1:1 scale. And by that I mean each picture is the exact same size of the part that you'll need to use. So therefore, like with screws, you just put the screw up against it, and like for instance, you got the screws there. If you're having trouble, you just find the screw that matches the same size as that picture there, and you're set. Alrighty. So first of all, we need our motor plate, and we'll need 2 of the 5mm pillow balls. We'll need thread lock, and you have 3 screws here, 2 3x5mm, and then you have a 3x6mm. So just pay attention. So one's slightly bigger than the other, that will go into the middle. Okay, so first we'll get our 2mm driver. Also during the build series, you'll notice through the series that I'll go ahead and do some things before I actually start filming. This is just to purely save on time and so on. So pay attention to the holes that these go through. Now we use our 2.5mm driver. My bad, that's a 3mm, I actually guessed. So we need a 3mm driver. Okay, so case of rinse and repeat. You don't need a lot of thread lock. Don't go nuts with it. And also try not to cross thread it as well. That's something you'll hear me say quite a lot. There's nothing worse than you start building something and you balls it up. Alright, so now what we need is our 3x6mm screw. What we'll do for the time being is we'll just place it on the flat surface. We'll just put a little dab of thread lock. Now while that's doing its thing, we need, this is the pivot ball link brace. So we have a 5mm pillar ball, goes in. Also pay attention to its orientation as well. Now we have top part goes in. Now we just screw it on. Now when you're doing it, do it evenly so it doesn't become uneven. Oh. That would give me a little bit of a fight here for some reason. Alright folks, just give me a quick second. I will be back and I will carry on. Alright, sorry about that folks. Just had a bit of an issue with the first screw. It seems to be very tight when you put it in at first, so just remember, take your time. So when you get to, you have to screw it through. When you get to the main part here, just use a little effort to get it in the hole. That's what she said. Alright. just have a scalpel, get rid of the excess plastic. Alright, so now when you do it too, just back it off a smidge, because you want the pillow ball inside here just to move freely. Okay, so now what we do is we put on the little spacer, and with our 3mm driver we'll attach it, and then we'll screw it in. Okay, pretty easy. And what you want when you're doing it, just test it, see if it moves nice and freely, like so. So that's what you want. Okay, so that's the first section done. Now what we need to do is we have the suspension links. Now I've gone ahead and put two screws in to one of the links. So what we need to do is need to get 2 more screws. If I can find them, here we go. Okay, now with a 1.5mm driver, we'll insert them in. Now when you put them in, there's a large hole and there's a narrow hole, so you put it through the large hole first, which will just slide in. Then we'll just tighten it up, not so it's tight, because we've got to put it over the top of the pillow ball. So do the same again. Okay, so that's that bit done. So now what we'll do is we will get our main chassis plate, and just give me a quick second, folks, so we can just look at the instructions. Okay, so we need 2 of these and 2 pillow balls. Okay, so it's the same procedure again. Now if you look on the chassis, you have you've got 3 holes on the sides here. So look, oh sorry, 4 holes. So just pay attention to which hole that the screw has to go through. Alright, so it'll show you on the instructions. So it has to go through here. So thread lock. Also, when you get your thread lock too, make sure you give the bottle a shake. Can't believe this is actually a 3mm hole. Same thing. Okay, just tighten it up. Alright. Okay, now the next section is to put the motor plate together, and we'll put the links on. Probably wouldn't hurt for me to use some multi-grips in this case, so I don't hurt myself like I just did and cut my thumb open. That's right, I just cut my thumb. Okay. a little easier too to do it this way. Okay. Okay, so that's that done. You don't want these to be too tight because you want the suspension to move freely. Alright, okay, so now we have 2 screws. Of course, this is going to put up a little fight, isn't it? So we'll just let it in. Okay. So now we have 2 screws to go through. They'll be marked clearly which ones have to go where. Now this section here requires you to pay a little attention to how you screw it up. Because the whole idea is you want this to be able to move freely. This section here, this part here has to remain firm on the chassis. The links are what hold it, and you want to pivot like so. When you get it and you feel like a bit of a binding goes pop, pop to the sides, you'll want to loosen this off and you'll want to tighten it so there's no binding on the motor pod. So as we can see here, so as I do it, there's no binding, so I like it like that. That's how I want it. Where did I put that? No, there it is. So now what we'll do is we'll tighten it, check it again. Nice. There's no binding whatsoever. That moves nice and freely. So that's part 2, everybody. Part 3. Yes, part 3. What we will be doing is moving on to the motor mount and most possibly the drive shaft. So stay tuned for part 3.